Minot State University. We're here at the MSU Dome here with Stosh Sitkowski, a member of the Minot State University wrestling team. Welcome to the first episode of Beaver Spotlight, Stosh.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Thanks for joining me. It should be a great experience here tonight. The purpose of this is to shine the light on Minot State student athletes and talk about not only what they're doing in the ring, but also in their free time. So, first of all, let's get to know you a little bit. Let's start with where you grew up, what you liked to do when you were young. I know you're a big, obviously, athletic family, athletic background. What was your biggest sport that you liked to do when you were a kid?
When I was younger, originally I'm from Northwest Indiana, south side of Chicago, around that part. So my family's always grown up there. I've always grown up wrestling and playing baseball, played a little bit of football, and honestly just love being an outdoors kid.
So, again, a big football player. When did you pick up wrestling?
When I was around 4 or 5, my buddy that I was really close with was like, hey, do you want to go to wrestling practice? And that was when I was with the Crosstown Crushers Club out of Illinois. So I would go to some practices there, and then I just started loving it.
Did you realize early on that you could be good at it, that you saw a future, maybe wrestling in college? Or high school, for that matter?
When I started off, it was more of like it was something fun to do. And then once I started getting better, and then growing up in the sport and learning how to handle loss with improving yourself, that's when I started realizing I can start getting better at what the sport was about.
So right around the 8th grade year, you were around, 13, 14 years old or so?
Yeah.
Your sports experience was put on hold. Can you explain to us what happened?
So on Halloween, my 8th grade year, I woke up and I couldn't feel anything from the waist down. So I had an immune disease called transverse myelitis, which paralyzes everything from my waist down. And from there, it was more of, I went to my clinic in town, and the doctor there was like, it was transverse myelitis or Guillain-Barré. What really scared me the most when he said that was Guillain-Barré works up the body. So from there, they sent me to our county clinic, and our county clinic was basically the same thing. You have Guillain-Barré or transverse myelitis. So from there, they sent me to Comer's Children's Hospital at the University of Chicago, where I went through numerous 3-hour MRIs, spinal taps, all that type of stuff. And from there, on like my 4th day there, they came in and said, all right, we figured out that you have transverse myelitis. It's the inflammation of the spine, which is caused by your immune system basically attacking itself.
How far along in your rehab process did you start to see some results?
I want to say 2 weeks in was when I started getting some feeling in my feet where I could feel a cold spoon or a cold piece of metal, but that was just a little bit.
So they had you on different machines trying to get you up, walking around, and you saw in this experience at this hospital other kids, and you how did you feel about the situation that you were in at that time?
With seeing other kids and like I said, having conversations with kids at the hospital and knowing that some kids' injuries and things that they were going through could have been that were a lot worse than mine, and knowing that they weren't going home longer than I was, and just knowing that, it's like, wow, this isn't as bad as what I was thinking. And knowing that, yeah, my chances of getting fully better weren't 100%, but at least I could still keep striving and keep on getting better, which is where I get that wrestling mentality, where it's just, you can't tell me no. I can just keep going.
So early on, what did the doctors tell you about your chances of getting into a full recovery and getting back on your feet?
They told me sports wasn't going to be an option, that I should be more focused on the big picture and not really think about doing any sports in high school. And when I told them about being a college athlete, they just sort of not really laughed, but gave that look as in like, okay, kid, like it's not gonna happen.
How did that impact on you?
Well, I was a stubborn little kid, so when they sort of said that, I would give a smart remark and be like, well, I'm gonna show you, and they would just laugh. So for me, it was more of, I'm gonna prove somebody wrong on what I'm gonna do, and I made it happen.
How did you track your positive gains and your improvement that you noticed during the course of your rehab or your therapy?
One of the ways I tracked it was wanted to keep a notebook on like day one, what I did to get better, what things I need to work on. But it was mostly just going to rehab and doing my extra things I could be doing at home to get myself better. So it was more of when my dad was with me at the hospital, and after I did my physical therapy, it was, hey, can you walk with me? Or let's go around the square a couple times. Or help watch me see if I can get up. Just little things like that, and see if I can do it 10 times, and the next day shoot for 11 times. And just really trying to make steps forward every day and not trying to take any steps back.
And then at one point you were transferred again, right, to Riley's Children's Hospital. How
Yes.
far along into the rehab process were you when you were moved to Riley's?
I want to say it was like a week and a half to two weeks in. Right was when I was able to slowly get into the wheelchair, get up and walk with what's it called, crutches, or not crutches, a walker. Was when they got the phone call from Riley's that a room was open, and they sent me down to Indianapolis.
So when you got to Riley's, what did you think? You had to feel like you were making progress, but you obviously were probably still a little worried, right?
So when I got to Riley's, it was more the fact of, okay, now I'm here strictly just for physical therapy and to get myself better. So all the testing and most of like the medical stuff was done and out of the way. I still had an IV for my fluids and medicine, but it was more so now, all right, now let's get you walking by yourself, an aspect.
Yeah.
So I looked at it as, all right, I'm one step closer. So one step, keep going forward.
And you still had on that wall what your doctor said previously about you may never be able to participate in sports again, right?
Exactly. I had that written down so many times, and my dad reminded me too. He was just like, don't take it as me like downgrading or anything, but just take it as in like she told you you're not going to be able to do something that you want to do, and really push for it. And he would always bring up a commercial we saw on TV, which was from Lance Armstrong's like bike, and it was quitting is not an option. He's like, it's not. You got to keep on going, keep on working forward.
And so you were at Riley's doing rehab, doing, walking and getting back into shape. And how long were you at Riley's before you were actually finally able to go home?
So I was probably at Riley's for around 3.5 weeks because I got discharged on 3 days before Thanksgiving. And right when I arrived at Riley's, I told the nurse there that I was going to be out of there before Thanksgiving. She told me that that's maybe going to happen, but it's highly unlikely. And
so
then
she casted some doubt on that.
Yeah, it was mostly just like, yeah, okay, kid. Same thing again that happened to me at the other hospital.
Right.
So then I sort of, all right, well, I'm going to show you, and I made it happen.
More bulletin board material, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so you were out of there, and what made you, now after you got out of that hospital, a lot of people, they move on, they go back to their life, they go back to playing sports, they go back to being a kid, but you decided, I'm going to make a difference, and you built your own charity with the help, of course, of your father as well. Right. And what made you want to do that, to make a charity to help out Riley's Children's Hospital?
So when I got moved down to Riley's, my dad is a union electrician, so he had to leave off of work to go be with me at Riley's Children's Hospital. So at that time, he was sleeping on the couch, and then the Ronald McDonald House in Riley's gave him a bed, a place to sleep, a warm 3 square meals a day, all that. And just knowing that they were willing to do all that for him, like I know there was other families that could use it too. So I just was like, hey, why don't we start up something? I have a meeting down there with the doctors in a couple months. Why don't we see if we can get some food together and just fill their pantries up? And then we started posting stuff on Facebook, and then everybody in the wrestling community in Northwest Indiana, same thing with like Illinois, and everybody just started bringing non-perishable food items. I think we filled 2 big U-Haul trucks. Oh, we filled a U-Haul truck and a trailer full of food to bring down to the Ronald McDonald House, and filled up their whole pantry and cooked them a nice warm meal. Because being in that position, it's hard because your kid is at the hospital, you're not able to work, you might be far from home, and it's just nice having a nice, good warm meal there for you. And just knowing that they did that for my dad, it was, I can do that for them.
So can you describe that feeling when you were finally discharged from Riley's? what you felt
Yeah.
like on that last day?
So I went into the doctor's office. We talked about all the paperwork, stuff like that, and she
Mhm.
was like, "All right, well, football is not going to be an option because they don't want me to get blindsided, but you're cleared for everything else." And I said, "Okay, sweet." And then she was like, "Yes, even wrestling." So in my head, I was jumping for joy, but I had to keep like a straight face, like I wasn't going to do anything dumb to hurt myself again. And it
I would
was,
have been literally jumping for joy if I was in your shoes.
oh yeah. And it was more the fact of that was the same doctor that told me I wasn't going to be able to do anything.
Yeah.
So I was more happy to be like, I finally showed you what I could do. So it was in that aspect more humbling too, that I could actually build myself up. Because the rating for transverse myelitis is out of the 100 or so, or out of the 10,000 kids that get it a year, 60% of them have disabilities. Like they can't really move to one side well. And then the other like 20% or 25%, it's partial disability. And then there's that last 15 that's either you're A, fully cleared, or you have some disability. So for me, I was in like that last part where it's like I'm fully cleared, but I still feel like there is a partial with my back sometimes. But I really don't know until they say you can get it again, but it's not going to happen again. There's a 1 in a million chance.
So back to the charity. How many years did you and your dad do that charity for Riley's?
We did it for 3 years, and then they sort of had to get put on hold because recruiting for schools and getting ready for college was starting to kick in, and also my sister being athletic also,
Mhm.
and her bowling season picking up, and it was just too much at the point for my parents to handle, and it was really hard to like not being able to do it because I really loved going back down there and just seeing the smile on people's faces and having conversations. And that was probably like the hardest thing to actually like stop doing. And I tried picking it up going back to school, but it, like again, it's very hard having a tight schedule with everything and trying to set something up at home. So I'm hoping when I'm done and graduate, I can start it back up again and really hope to make another impact wherever I go.
Yeah, because since you joined Minot State, you not only wrestle here, but you're also the SAC vice president, which keeps you very busy with
Oh yeah,
athletics, academics, and as well as that. It's an amazing story. It's fascinating. I'm glad you joined us here on Beaver Spotlight. What's been the most rewarding part of your college career so far?
I would have to say just being able to be a student athlete and achieving my dream. My dream was to become a student athlete and a collegiate wrestler
Mhm.
and get my degree and be the first one in my family to get a degree and maybe go on and pursue a master's. So, and just the experience. I mean, I grew up 30 minutes from the city. Don't I get to experience everything, but now I'm in a whole different area, so it makes life a lot better.
And my final question, what are you going to do after you graduate here from Minot State?
So my goal for after graduating Minot State is applying for some master programs, and
Mhm.
then I have plans to either A, go back home or moving to San Diego and being a high school teacher and a wrestling coach, or applying to some schools out there for a master's degree. But I still got to work on getting everything done here, so see where it goes.
It's an amazing story, and thank you again for joining us here on Beaver Spotlight. That's Stosh Sitkowski. It's fantastic that you were able to join us for the first episode, and we appreciate you being a part of it.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for having me.